this offseason, Pete Carroll's going to go, right? John Gruden will be hired by the Raiders. This is if I was in charge. You got to remember, Mark Davis is still Al Davis's son, okay? They did not want to part ways with John Gruden. They were forced to because of the NFL and that nightmare situation, right? That John Gruden, you know, he has owned some of that really ugly stuff, okay? And I think his reputation has been resuscitated, and then rejuvenated. And I think now he's become sort of a caricature of himself in the most positive light possible. And unless something has changed, the guy can still coach his ass off. Okay? So you bring back John Gruden. And then what you do is you bring back your old quarterback, right? And so
Derek Carr? Who are we talking about?
Yes. Thank you, Scotty.
That dude's retired
for now. Okay, and he retired too early. He's still very young as a stretch, but he's still young. If you can get Gruden back, you can get Derek Carr back. And then what you can do, and here's my point. As a guy who grew up a hardcore Eagles fan, right, but was intoxicated with NFL films and John Madden and Al Davis and the Raiders and Lester Hayes and John Matuzak, Ted Hendricks. These guys were outlaws. You know, we didn't know what they did at night, but we knew they showed up on Sunday and they were going to kick your ass, right? Lyle Alzado, Howie Long. I mean, Howie Long said it. I used to watch this video when I was a kid before I would play football. And this is like before I was like a little psycho in grade school, right? Before I would play football in grade school. It was called Crunch Course. And it was about the NFL's like hardest hits. Honestly, if they made a video like this now, I think whoever would make it would get arrested, you know, because it was an ugly video as today's standards go. But Howie Long, you know, pretty much he said, when I was drafted by the Raiders, they gave me a helmet and they told me you're going to play defensive end for I think it was the LA Raiders. And he said, and that was it. And I went out there and I just kicked ass. I was who I was. Like that mentality, right? That like commitment to excellence and just win, baby. And that Al Davis mystique is completely gone. Completely gone. That fan base, like I check in on them. And honestly, I have this hat on today. It's totally random. I just love the Raiders. That fan base I've never, ever, ever seen a Raider fan base apathetic. But they are that now. The team going to Vegas has stripped them of all that grit, right, and intimidation that their fan base used to bring. I mean, when I was before I started doing play-by-play, I did spotting, and I was spotting for Matt Devlin, my buddy, and he did a Raiders game for Fox. He did the Raiders game with Tony Siragusa, R.I.P., right? So I'm spotting for Devlin, and Tony Siragusa is the color analyst. This was before I stopped drinking. I've never been a good driver, but I was driving us to the stadium over the not the Bay Bridge, but the other bridge. People always get them mixed up. And I was driving, and I was like just doing my thing. I had like my hand up here, and I'm driving, and Saragusa was riding shotgun. And he's like, dude, do you have a car? And I remember Devlin was like, no, he doesn't even have a car in Charlotte. And he's like, you need to go back to Charlotte. You need to rent a car, and you need to practice. This is Tony Siragusa. I'm like, ooh. Anyways, and this is like, you want to know about your 10,000 hours and like getting nervous to perform before kickoff. And this was at the old Coliseum in Oakland. This goes back to the Raiders and their intimidation factor and their fans. This Raiders team sucked. They were playing Arizona. I mean, Matt Devlin would tell you himself, he was calling NFL games at the time. He was like NFL on Fox, like seventh crew, sixth crew, right? Like he was kind of one of those guys. He was getting a crack at doing big time games. And so obviously the game was not like a featured game of the weekend. It was Arizona and it was Oakland. And it was terrifying in that place. Like I was spotting for Matt. And they had honored John Madden at the game. John Madden had been inducted into the Hall of Fame the previous summer. I think this was 2006 or 2007. So Madden was honored before the game. Place was electric. We're starting the game, right? Scotty, the scoreboard went out over here. So they're starting the game. I just want to turn it back on because I'm kind of feeling it here. We might clip this and put this up. So they start the game, okay? And I'm going to point at the guy because I'm spotting for Matt Devlin. The spotter points out, who's back to return the kick, who's kicking off. And I'm going to point, and my hand's shaking, dude. It's so loud. I'm nervous. I'm probably very hungover too. I'm sure that contributed. And I have spotters now when I call games. Like, you don't want your spotter to be nervous. You might have a little like tinge of being nervous. And I remember Matt Devlin and I are so close, he's coming to my wedding. And I'm like, and I go to point and he goes, "Are you nervous?" I was like, yeah. But I say that to say, leaving, first of all, that black hole, that stuff was real. That place was scary for an innocent bystander like me, let alone someone who was on the other end of that vigor, right? That like fire and brimstone, like you experienced hell when you were a quarterback and you were driving towards the black hole. Now you go to Las Vegas and it's a goddamn amusement park, right? Allegiant Stadium is more like the Raiders version of Disney World, right? It's soft. Opponents aren't scared to go play there. Like, the team sucks and the environment blows. It's now become one of those stadiums where it's not quite like LA Chargers deal, but the Cowboys travel well. But when you watch that, I watched that Monday night game. When the Cowboys would make a play, it sounded like it does at the Super Bowl. Because you got to believe the Cowboys are in town. A lot of the Raiders fans are going to go see their team play the Cowboys, right? So it's like felt 50-50, and there was not like an overwhelming charge put into the stadium when the Raiders would make a play. It was like the pop you get at a Super Bowl, like, oh, more of that, like a weird, like sprinkled throughout the stadium type ovation or inspiration from your fan base. That's the exact opposite, dude, of what that stadium and what that environment, not that particular stadium, but what the environment the Raiders used to produce. John Gruden can bring that back, okay? And forget Derek Carr. That might be a bit of a reach, okay? But I said it. But John Gruden will bring that back. And here's why I think it could happen. Because it's a great opportunity for another Davis, Mark Davis, this is for you, for another Davis, a true Raider, to stick up the middle finger at the NFL and say, you know what? This has gone far enough, right? Like and by the way, they're responsible for this going far enough, but they're saying this has gone far enough. And although you may not agree with this, and although it may ruffle feathers on Park Avenue in New York, we're taking him. John Gruden's back as the head coach of the Raiders. And I'm telling you, with that, one of the most important organizations in not just the NFL, all of sports, will be at least experiencing a pulse and a heartbeat. And all those people, right, those Raider fans who've spent their whole life supporting this team. I'm talking about blue-collar folks who work as UPS guys from Monday to Friday and dress up like somebody who, if you open the door on Halloween expecting a terrifying presence, you would still be scared shitless, right? That's who that Raider fan is, right? But now those people are just working at UPS and saying, screw it. I'm not going to that game. And look, for a while there, and I'm sure there are Raider fans are so special. I'm sure there's many who are still making the trek from LA to Oakland every year or every Sunday that the Raiders are home. but it's just not there anymore, man. Like the Raiders are special, dude. And somehow we've allowed them to slip into obscurity and their fans into apathy. We got to fix that. John Gruden's the solution. The Pete Souza Show will be live on Monday from Miami because I have a basketball game there on Sunday, right? For ESPN. And the next time I turn on ESPN and there's a big story about the Raiders, I hope it's January and they're hiring John Gruden. How about that? All right, we'll see you Monday.
It's the Pete Souza Show.